Welcome to Bachelorette,
a podcast so educational it could be a university class.
With your hosts,
Danielle Dick McHugh,
Kim Hannah,
and Bill Henninger. Welcome, everybody, to the final episode of Bachelorette. We have been gone for 3 weeks, and I'm not sure a full 3 weeks of episodes happen, but how's everyone doing?
I have a question. You just said the final episode of Bachelorette. Are we done after tonight?
Well, we're done with the season.
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know if corporate's going to re-up us for another season. I'm in, but you know.
I'm more excited about next season than I've been this entire season.
Yeah, I'm hoping that one has a little bit more pizzazz.
Well, we have a bit of a gap, and maybe that's what we need.
Yeah.
Distance makes the heart grow fond.
Yeah. And this seems to come right after the Rachel, Nicole, Gabby season. So we have some time.
Yeah, they were hot and heavy there for a while.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Like they were coming in. Oh, Ada's got something to show Danielle. Ada's joining us today.
Yeah, so my daughter's joining us tonight. Maybe my in-laws too.
We love family members.
I mean, my aunt made an appearance earlier.
Sue and Danielle were on one episode, so
it's a family affair.
Yeah. All right. So, question of the day: are you more likely to be? So, I was watching The Office, and they had a really great part where Creed said, "I've been involved with many cults. Some as a follower, some as a leader. You have more fun as a follower. You make more fun. You make more money as a leader. Are you more likely to lead your own cult or be a follower in a cult?"
Oh, I would lead my own cult.
You lead your own cult?
I would not be a follower of a cult because I'm suspicious of everything and everyone, and I don't trust anybody. But I would lead an amazing cult.
I trust everyone, but I think that I am just a little weird enough that I might be the cult leader. You know, that like I might come up with the idea and bring people along with me.
Danielle, you have strong, like, bring the idea, but then somebody like goes and then you're a real good lieutenant.
What if I'm the cult leader and you're the second in command?
But Danielle thought up the idea, I feel like.
Yeah.
Or like I would convince like a friend of mine, like Kim, I would convince you to start a cult. Right? Like I would be like, you know, I'd be like, well, I don't want the responsibility of this, but like, wouldn't this be really awesome?
Yeah, and I'd be like 4 in on this, and I'm like, I've got the time. I've got Tuesday afternoons from 4 to 5:30 open. Let's do this.
Danielle is one of the most supportive friends I have. Like, if I was like, hey, I'm gonna go run my car into the other house, she'd be like, you know what, Bill, follow your heart. You got to do it. Did you ask the neighbors? All right, let's go.
I think like when I was in high school, I often was like too nice to ever want to do something mean, but I might give somebody an idea to do something mean. You know, I'm like, oh, you know, you should run out and do, you know, lock these people's door. And like, I would never do it, but like, I might talk someone else into doing it.
So I was told it was like 3rd grade, a teacher like pulled me aside and like, listen, Bill, everybody does what you tell them to. And so you get people off task. I need you to be a force for good. And so I feel like what I should have heard was like, Bill, you really should help this lady out. She's got like 20, but in my head for the rest of my life, I've always heard like, Bill, if you ever need to start a cult, you can do it. People will follow you. Like, and so I kind of feel a little bit like Anakin Skywalker, where it's like, I'm destined someday to go to the dark side and just start a cult. So
what would your cult be? Like, what would your cult that you started be?
People Against Pizza Ranch. My poor students today heard my rant about Pizza Ranch, so they also got a rant about the simulation the other day, and so I think they're kind of like getting ready to go to the dean and be like, he's on Hinge.
Calm down.
Which is the first start of making a cult, right? A couple people are like, they're on Hinge, and then you're like, well, we're taking our worshiping to my basement.
This
Yeah.
made me think of, because I was like, oh, what would be my cult? And I'm like, well, I think kind of like my goal get 'em group is kind of like my own little cult. And then I was like, I'm like, oh, like I'm like a supportive cult. And then
Yeah.
I was like thinking about when I had told Ryan, I said, oh, there's this movie when I was growing up that I watched all the time. Like, did you watch it as a kid? It's like about these boys and one of their friends becomes like a gang member. And so they start their own gang called the Buttercream Gang. And they're a gang that does good things. And Ryan's like, he's like, no, Danielle, like I've never heard of this. And like come to find out it's like totally a Mormon movie. And the Buttercream Gang.
I was gonna say I've never heard of this movie, but I watched a lot of movies when I was a kid.
I didn't expect it to go that way. That made my night. Wow. All right.
Wasn't expecting the Mormon movie.
Yeah. Are we see, this is what I'm saying about Danielle being just kooky enough to like really I don't think you push hard enough, Danielle. Like that's recruitment is not your strong point. Like you get people on board, but you don't have the like cult recruitment where it's like you will be part of this, like, you know.
Yeah,
I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good quality to not have, by the way.
Not to be like my teacher. It's like, so if you want to start a cult, you're gonna have to work a little bit harder on being pushed.
I'll work on negative reinforcement.
Yeah. Do you want to go to hell? No. Start planning.
Are you sure? It's really hot there. The sun is out every day.
Fail to plan to go to hell. Go get him, crew.
Go get him. What are your 8 goals to get to hell?
All right. You ready for the 2-minute recap? So I'm going to be way honest.
How are you going to do 2 minutes for the last
So here's
movie?
what happened. I went back and I tried to remember what we recapped last. And I was like, it's been a while and so much has happened, but not a lot. And so I'm going to give just the highlights. You guys ready? We go to paradise. He makes this great big deal about he's not going to bang anyone. Do I need to spell words out since Ada's there? BANGANYONE. And so, you know, he talks to Sean Lowe, and I don't know what Sean Lowe told him, but apparently in the After the Roast, Sean Lowe's like, I didn't tell him that at all, but I kid. Ha 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 ha. I want to be a youth pastor. Whatever. So he goes in and he tells each girl this. Well, apparently he was only able to keep that promise to Ariel, and then he BANGED'd whatever her name is. Victoria? What's the brown name?
Gabby.
Yeah.
Victoria. There's no Dementor on this season.
Gabby. And then he whispered to her, this is just between us, right? Creepily, I can only imagine. And then he got a conscience. Your boy got a conscience all of a sudden and decided to tell everyone. So Gabby didn't realize that he told everybody. And I mean everybody, like you, me, your grandma, if she was watching. Yeah. And then he decides not to have a date with Katie. Or did they have a date?
They had a
I think
date.
they had a
It
date.
was like totally.
Yeah.
It was on the island where Yoda lives.
Yeah.
Their date was in the island planet where Yoda lives, and then that's when he told her, and it was very I loved all the memes, like, why are they at Kermit the Frog's
in the Dagobah
like swamp? Yes.
Like swatting mosquitoes and like crying and like it was like that's
And it started out so cool because my dream is to do one of those glass bottom kayak things. And then he takes her under this giant tree and is like, yeah, I banged BANGED Gabby.
So this all goes through like a weird thing he discloses, and then he sends Ariel home, right? Then they do so then they come back and they do like the finale is apparently going to be before that he gets along with everyone's family, right? Of course he does. He's smiley, he's tall, whatever. Go ahead.
He does not get along with Ariel's brother.
That is true. Ariel's
and I loved Ariel's brother for that.
Ariel's brother also is probably in the mafia, but another time, another place. So then we come to the finale, right? And we're going to do this weird setup where they're like bringing us back and forth, which I don't appreciate. I do not like this weird, like, we're going to bring you here, we're going to bring you there, blah, blah. There was also a Women Tell All. I didn't think there was anything of note on Women Tell All. Danielle, Kim, you said you didn't watch it.
I didn't watch it.
Yeah. The girls argued a little bit, but there was nothing great. So then we go to the finale, right? And he brings Ariel out. I thought Ariel was awesome. She was basically like trying to explain to him, don't you understand why when you take the decision out of my hands, I lose my agency? And he clearly had been coached by somebody because he just kept saying, absolutely. Absolutely. And I feel like what he meant to say was, I hear you, but he kept saying absolutely as if he was agreeing with her. And so it felt like he was agreeing and then explaining why he didn't agree. So anyways, horrible decision. Then he goes on his last chance dates, which they were actually calling, which I thought was really funny, the last chance date. And they do great. He has several conversations with them. He does with Gabby several times say how hard of a decision he has. And she's like, I just wish you'd quit saying that. And he's like, yeah, I get it. Because, the decision is so hard. I have two equally wonderful women. It's like, maybe we just don't talk about it. But he's like, but you're both so good and it's just so hard. And at this point, Gabby kind of understands that this isn't going her way, right? So then they go to the final rose ceremony and Gabby gets out of the car, steps in mud, and probably the greatest line of the season says, there's mud right there. When you bring Katie, the person who matters, make sure you don't park her in there. And then she walks in these giant heels in alternating like carpet and sand because apparently they wanted to screw with her. He starts to say something nice and then he's like, but I can't love you. And she's like, you don't have to say it. I'm good. And he just keeps explaining it. And she's like, I don't need to hear it. And he's like, so basically, and she's like, I'm good. And he's like, you were great, but, and she starts to walk off. She walks off. Yep. She trips over several of the carpets, which I felt bad about. They do the after the rose ceremony with her and it was bad, like bad. Do you guys want to add anything to it? I couldn't put my finger on why it was so bad, but it was bad. It was painful. And then they like cut her off as like she's trying to ask a question and Jesse Palmer's like, it's TV. We don't got a lot of time. Okay. So, that was rough.
Well, it was kind of like, they really needed to have a conversation.
Yeah.
For closure. And never really got that. And it was like they started to do that on national television. And Jesse Palmer's like, yeah, like we only slotted like 5 minutes for this and you're kind of going overtime. And I think they wanted to have Gabby at least wanted to have a real conversation and go.
But prior to this, say that again, Kim.
So hopefully they can have one eventually.
Yeah.
But it was so it was so clear. So I watched it last night on Hulu. So I didn't have the sound issues that people had on this side of the country.
Yeah.
So I heard their whole date when they were on their date and they were horseback riding and everything. And it was so clear even then that if you are to this point and you don't know who's getting your ring, clearly he did, and clearly he's known since probably the first episode, but he just kept stringing her along. She should have been like, you know what, I can tell what's going on. I'm going to remove myself from the situation and not be at the final rose ceremony. And maybe she tried and the producers wouldn't let her, so then she had to go through the whole thing. But
before her 5 minutes of closure, they had 15 minutes of Sean Lowe, which was just horrible. And I will physically fight that man if I ever get a chance. So put it on the board. Of the people, Shaquille O'Neal, I'll fight him. Sean Lowe, couple other people. I can't think of.
I don't think you would win against Shaquille O'Neal.
I would win.
I'm gonna put
Ye of little,
I don't
ye of
know.
little faith. I
He
would.
could just like put his hand on the top of your head and like break your brain.
So
He's very big.
so after that, Katie and him go, they have a great time. He proposes to her, Katie cries, and then they do the after the rose, and they force us to pretend that him and Katie are going to be great. I give him like 2 months. Scene. Thoughts.
Did anybody notice how weird the end was when they let the audience come out onto the floor and Jesse was just like standing on the stage above them and they didn't show like outtakes or anything. It was just like, just end the show. Like, just run. This is so weird because he's like, you can tell some of the women are down there like, yay, we're on the floor. What do we do now? Like, it was so weird.
The other thing that I thought was interesting is that he told Gabby that he just decided the night he was laying in bed before the rose ceremony. But then when he was talking to Jesse, he said, I knew the second I saw her at the first or the last chance date. That was when I knew. So he lied to one of those two. So
He lied to Gabby. I mean, obviously.
all right. So concepts. Kim, you're up first. What concept?
Okay. I took a deep pause there because I need to collect myself before we talk about.
Were you going to cuss? Spell it out.
No, I'm not going to cuss, but the outdoor showering, the amount of shots of him showering outside wearing swim trunks with no soap ever. Is he always like, is he always 5 seconds away from jumping into a chlorinated pool? Because I don't know, like when I was a kid, we were always told we had to like shower, like get wet before we got into the pool. I never understood it. I never fought it because I'm a water baby. I was like, yeah, I'll get wet. Woohoo! But like he was constantly filmed showering for no reason. Like we get it, he has a nice chest, but it's not that nice that we need to see him do it every time. So was this all they could think of for his transitions and voiceovers? Because they never had him. Maybe he can't read. I don't know. But they never had him like reading a book or walking through flowers or staring contemplatively toward a beach or a sunset or something. He was always weirdly showering with nothing. And it made me irrationally irate how many times an episode we had to see him shower. I don't need to see him shower. I assume he's a clean man. We don't need to see it.
It's got to be because he's so boring, right?
I mean, it has to be. What else could they do? My Lanta.
You know, it would have made more sense to me if they were playing up. Doesn't he have like a backstory that he lost a whole bunch of weight?
Yes.
Right? And it would make more sense if they had ever talked about that the entire season.
Yeah.
But, like, at least then it would give like, oh, we're watching these shower scenes to like, you know, celebrate that, like, I don't know, he feels good and confident in his body after going through this tough experience. Like, at least that would have given it like some sort of like meaning to it.
Yeah.
Or, like, again, like, I mean, I do think the last couple episodes, and I don't want to get to, you know, because I want to talk, this is kind of one of my concepts that I wanted to talk about, but
let's roll it right in. Let's roll
right into it. Okay. So what was so interesting to me and what I'm trying to make sense of, because like we've texted about this, but since you all can't read our texts, how much we absolutely despise Zach by the end of the season, right?
Yeah.
Like he's, you know, he moves from boring to like, bro, you're messing up big time.
Yeah.
But what I'm trying to reconcile is, one, he chooses really lovely women, right? Like his top 3, I think, are like, Ariel is so like poised and graceful and mature. And I think, you know, Katie and Gabby are both sweeties. And I think you start to really see the complexity of Gabby come out in these last episodes and like her strength. And so I'm trying to reconcile that and the fact, and there's ways that even as they called him out on their stuff, they were also very generous with him. right? So even as they were like holding him to their thing, they're like, y'all, like, you missed some big parts of our conversations, right? And when you hear his family, we start to learn things about him, right? Like, I mean, obviously his sort of like birth story, but like we also, you know, like there's little glimpses that we get about him. And I'm like, why? I think that part of the reason we despise him too is because we don't even know him.
Yeah.
Right? That like, here's this person making terrible mistakes, but he's never been generous. Like, I kind of feel like the producers set him up to be the villain of his own season.
Yep.
That or he didn't give him anything.
Or he didn't have any person, like
I don't know if I believe, like, the reason that I don't know that I believe that is like Gabby has, you know, like says,
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
hey, we had all these conversations and then they aired like something that was like less than like 5 seconds of our whole like conversation. And just kind of the way that they talked about him was really
I agree.
positive.
Because they always, sorry, go ahead.
I was just trying to make sense of, here's these people, especially like Ariel, who I kind of trust and also holds him to his stuff. But then it's also sort of like, he's still like a really good person. And I really like, you know, and I'm like, where was that person?
Yeah.
We never got to see him.
Yeah. I think all of the women, because they kept talking about like, he's so great. He's such a great, like, we have such a, like, we connect and we have such a great time when we're together. And we didn't see any of that. And it's like the whole, like, what are you, less showers and more conversation, like, why aren't we seeing any of that? Like, I don't know who they're targeting. Like, who's the target? What are they doing? I don't know if the producer, like the showrunner is leaving after this year. So maybe the producers were like, let's burn this show into the ground this year and then start fresh with Charity. I don't know, because they'll have a whole new showrunner. But it was like, what are you guys doing? You're making him seem like he's a robot. Like, he absolutely comes off as robotic. And I will say, before we started filming, one of the podcasts that I like to listen to is The Bachelor. They do a Bachelorette thing. And they were actually, I was listening to them interviewing Zach and Katie right before I was listening to this. And he's very personable. Like, on the podcast, he was not robot. They even called him out. Like, they're like, yeah, they make you sound so robotic on the show. And he was laughing about it because he's like, yeah, my voice is very distinctive and it comes off kind of robotic. But he was, I mean, even in the 20 minutes of the podcast I was able to listen to, he was way more personable and had personality than what we saw in however many weeks we just watched of The Bachelor.
Yeah, I mean, because like I really disliked him, but I was also sort of like, this doesn't make sense to me. Why are some of these people, even as they're angry with him, still like, he's still ultimately a good guy? And then like his family was giving us these little bits about him that I was like, well, why haven't we gotten any of that? You know, the thing that's interesting is we also never really got some of those like confessional. You know how they'll do the confessionals? This time it felt like anytime that Zach was, maybe I'm wrong, you know, but it felt like most of the time it was like, oh, you and Jesse are gonna have a conversation, or you and Sean Lowe for the 57th time. There wasn't any of that, like him just like sitting and like contemplating or struggling with things.
I wondered if it didn't work well for the camera when he did it. And so they were like, well, we'll get some people to talk to him and this will bring him out. And, you know, there's probably people like that don't do well just being a stream of consciousness, or when a producer asks you, it's hard for them to, you know, talk, but when it's a friend, and so they like, we'll have this great idea, we'll have him talk like he's talking to a friend. Or the other thing I thought was, you know, when they had who are the two Tasha and Caitlin, that worked really pretty well when they were the hosts. And I felt like people were like, this is awesome. You know, they got someone to talk to. They really draw it. I wondered if they're like, well, we're going to do this with guys. And I'm just not sure that, one, the type of guy that they're having on the show is wired for that. And two, I don't know if America's ready for that. Like guys having pillow talk. I just don't know if the demographic that watches The Bachelor is going to be like, this is what we want. Yep, right here. You know,
Especially with this boring Jesse being the one he's talking to.
I think it would have worked better if they would have had him play golf and be like, man, women be crazy. And like, you know, all the conservatives that watch it would have been like, yeah, women do be crazy.
Women do be crazy. He did say that he had some of his actual real life friends come, and none of those scenes made the show.
Oh, interesting.
So again, he had actual friends that would have showcased his personality more, and that wasn't shown on the show.
I mean, here's the thing. He done mess up.
Yeah.
Like, he messed up. Big
Oh, yeah.
time. I have some big feelings about how he handled some of the stuff. But at the same time, I also think that they did him dirty, though.
Yeah.
You know, I think that they didn't have a villain on the show and they made him it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in regards to that, some of the things he messed up, let's talk about like the whole conversation around not having sex, not having sex. And I know I can say it now. I'm just having a great time spelling things out. So his original idea was this was not going to complicate stuff, which I think was a faulty decision at first, right? Assuming that this doesn't complicate it for everyone because it doesn't complicate it for him. That being said, had he just said, I don't feel comfortable with this to each person individually, I think he would have been fine because it's your body, your choice. And had he had, you know, REALTIONSH relationship. I messed up. Had he
I'm
had,
trying to figure out what you're
had
spelling.
an intimate relationship with one person and not with two other people, but he hadn't made a proclamation, I would have been like, good for you. That's your decision, right? Like each relationship should progress. And that's one of the things I don't like about The Bachelor is the fantasy suite. I feel like it creates this like expectation that borders on some type of like assault at times. You know, we're pushing people into decisions they're not sure they want to.
I'm also not entirely sure that Zach and Katie didn't have fun in the museum on their first date on like week 2 of the show. Like, how do we know? They stayed in a tent in a museum all night long. How do we know that they didn't do anything that night?
I mean, it's always been uncomfortable to me the way in which they sort of film it. And I mean, part of it is I do think what it does showcase is how terrible we are at talking about intimacy and navigating, you know, sex.
I'm enjoying that we're now trying to create like every word that we can think of that our parents used around us. Hanky panky.
When a mommy and a daddy really love each other.
I agree with you, Danielle. Maybe that's what. So teaching human sexuality, like I am a firm believer. You know, we teach about development and developing understanding of sex with kids, and it's like your best bet is to one, ask a kid what they think it is, and then give them information that's competent to their level of development, right? It bothers me that the show is so like wink, wink, nudge, nudge about it. Cause it's like, oh, if you forgo your 2 rooms, you can have this key to the fantasy suite. And then they go in and then they kiss and then they shut the door. And then sometimes they like record for a couple seconds after. And it's like, what are they doing? And it's like, they are consenting adults. They can do whatever they want. And the other thing that bothers me is like, if you do a survey of what people define as sexual activity in the US, you get this huge span of what it is. And so even then, when Zach's like, I'm not having sex with these women, what does he mean?
There's a whole lot of stuff you can do.
Yeah, what I define. And so it's like he may have had what he doesn't define as sex with Katie at the museum. However, what Gabby defines as sex, they may have went there and way past it at the museum.
Maybe his definition of sex is the same as President Clinton's definition of sex. So maybe that should be, or maybe that's what the bachelor definition of sex is, what Bill Clinton said was sex.
Yeah. It bothers me all around. And then what also bothered me was that he almost made a good faith attempt to discuss expectations at the beginning, which is what I think is what people should do. Because what we know from research is that it reduces the likelihood of sexual assault and issues around consent, right? But instead of having a conversation, he made a proclamation and then he didn't follow it. And that's, yeah. And then he decided,
and then he told everybody.
And then he decided, you know what would be best if instead of just saying, this meant a lot to me and you, I really appreciate it, I need to make a big freaking announcement to all of America. And it just.
Yeah, I think the part that I was the most angry about is that then to relieve his own guilt.
Yes.
To relieve his own guilt. It was so selfish.
Yeah.
He didn't ask Gabby.
Yep.
Well, are you comfortable with me talking about this? Katie didn't ask to be told this, right? Like,
and one of them said that, didn't they?
Yes.
One of them said, like, I didn't want it. I don't care. Like,
I think Katie told him that. She was like, I understand what fantasy suites are. You didn't need to, like, now this is all I can think about on our date.
Yeah.
Well, and then he kind of ruined their time together too, right? Because it was a huge mess. What did you all think? Because I know people were talking about this, and Is this
your next concept?
No, well, maybe. So it's the moment where he actually tells them, both Ariel and Gabby, that he doesn't want to have sex, and they're both of the responses, or will he? You know, like,
yeah.
So there was a part of me that's like, okay,
game on, challenge accepted.
And there is a part of me that's like, if this were flipped, I would be really mad about it. I would be like, come on, guys, like, respect this. But I was kind of like, yeah, game on, seduce him, like, get him to break. I don't know, maybe that makes me a bad person, but I was like, good for you, ladies. Like, yeah.
Well, maybe it's because not shown to us, but they do actually know him better than we know him, and they know that maybe he says this stuff all the time, but then he doesn't actually follow through. So maybe they're like, oh, sure, we're not having any relations tonight, wink wink, for the camera, but then once we're behind closed doors, anything is possible.
Yeah, I felt so bad for Gabby, because part of it too is, like, a lot of times we do have to just make guesses as to what happens in the fantasy suites. And so, like, it's not that he just was like, I'm going to tell Katie, and took that sort of decision away. It's like, I'm going to announce on national television what we did.
Well, remember, there was a season a long time ago, and I think the guy's name was Ed, right? And he couldn't get a BONER. That's the political term during the moment that they were going to have sex. And then when they like talked about it, he was like, yeah, I was tired, I had a lot to drink, and I just couldn't properly show my love to her. And it's like, what does that even mean? Like,
are we talking Ed from when Ed made it way farther than anybody thought, and it was like, how did Ed get this far? Or is this a different Ed?
This was a guy from way far back.
Okay.
He was on like several episodes, like 2 seasons of Bachelor in Paradise. And
Okay.
But, yeah, to Danielle's point, it's like, you know, even then they won't be like, you know, I had WISKEYDICK.
Yes, you did.
Who says I can't?
It took me a while. I got it.
Yeah. All right.
You're making me learn spelling again. I don't like it.
Who's up?
I think it's
Danielle?
really funny that I just now like understand what happened in that moment with Ed.
Oh,
You
really?
know, I just really thought he just needed to go to bed.
Well, if you were a guy and you had drank too much, you'd have been like, I get you, Ed.
I know it. I know it. I know it.
Happens to all of us at some point. All right. Is Kim up? Danielle? Danielle, do you have another concept? Kim?
I have another concept. Danielle, do you have another one?
I don't think so. We'll see. I'll think of something.
Ada
Okay,
can,
so I'm
Ada
about
can
to
do
drop.
our wild card.
Did you watch any of the show this time? You didn't watch any of the show, did you?
What did you say?
My show. You weren't watching it with me this time, were you?
What did you mean?
Did you watch The Bachelor? You know when I watch my TV show? That's what we're talking about. Did you watch any of it? You did? Do you remember
She's
what
learning.
BACHLOR. Come on.
No, she was watching Disney Channel.
Nice. Well, the Disney Channel, I mean, after reading Jeanette McCutcheon's book about her life on a Disney show, the Disney Channel isn't that far off from what this is. In fact, my second concept is that I have a theory, or I have a suggestion that they just need to stop having The Bachelor, the show. Because they've done a terrible job of casting it for several seasons now, and the guys don't seem to handle it as well as when a woman is leading the show. It just doesn't seem, it seems to be like, I don't think that they can handle juggling that many women properly. I don't think they can handle the fantasy suites at all. And I think that they either need to change the show for them or stop doing that part and just do the Bachelorette and Bachelor in Paradise. Because for whatever reason, the women seem to be able to handle the juggling of that many men better. And they seem to be able to, for the most part, handle fantasy suites better.
Who was the last interesting Bachelor? Like, not even good.
Not one I've ever seen. And I've seen, the first season I saw that was a Bachelor was Matt James.
I would put in a plug that Matt James, had he been in a better situation, would have been good. But he was in that weird, like, COVID hotel. And but I felt like he could have been good.
Why does it look like this is on that?
Oh, because is it on a different side of the screen? So for those of you listening, my daughter has put Post-it notes all over my chest, and they're on the opposite side, I think, or something. I don't know, on the screen. They're not. This isn't a mirror. But yeah, I think that they need to decrease the amount of contestants.
And like extend the time with the contestants.
Yes, I would, because I think that if we could see them actually developing more rich relationships with people, it would be a lot more interesting. I think less people would make it, well, because it just sometimes feels like I hardly know anyone until like you get to hometowns.
If you watch Married at First Sight, which is on TLC, which is kind of not the same, but kind of reality, you know, kind of this idea, you know, you follow a couple that gets married without seeing each other, and it's like, you know, 15 episodes, but you follow them all the way through, and it's just like that, you know, you get invested in them. And I feel like you're right, Danielle, if they had 6 contestants and we got to see them interact over 6 weeks, it would be like, all right, I'm really starting to understand what the draw here is. Yeah.
Heck, if they even just started with 15 instead of 30, I think that it would be actually like more interesting to watch.
But I love that first episode so much. Like, that's
when
my
it's a
favorite.
cattle call.
Oh.
So again, I started watching during COVID, and I actually enjoyed how creative they had to be for their dates when they were stuck at the La Quinta in New Mexico, because it made them have to like actually, I mean, clearly it still didn't work because none of those people are still together, but they had to think outside the box a little bit for their dates and have them be more dates like what normal people would actually do on dates. And they were just kind of all together all the time. So I feel like they really got to know each other better. And also because they were all together all the time, the drama was a little bit more exciting too.
I love, didn't they like play like a game of Twister or something like
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I mean, board games, which
that
Bill
was,
would hate, but like
Yeah.
a date night with board games, please. I would love that. And
That's
so,
my nightmare.
I mean, I'd like to go to France and maybe not Ukraine right now, but like, like Europe and stuff too, but that's not sustainable when you're actually back home dating. So why don't you do a little mix of both? I don't know.
If the unthinkable should happen, I become single again. Do not try to make me play board games. My friends will attest to this. I loathe board games.
I'm gonna set you up with so many blind dates. Sorry, Elaine, and all of them will be
May she
board
rest in peace.
game focused dates. We love you. You are alive. I don't know why. I just looked
Yeah,
up
pour
to
one
heaven.
out for our homie in the future.
This may not be the episode.
Yeah. Love you, honey. Drive.
Love you long time.
Love you, hun.
I love you long time.
Sean Lowe. This is my
Ugh.
concept. What was his point? Like, why was he on this show? He just.
So this is my theory.
Yeah,
My
please.
theory is that
Make it make sense.
what they wanted to do is build up Zach as this like nice, wholesome dude and play up this like wholesome
Yeah.
thing, but then turn him into the villain.
And that was Sean Lowe's, like, his whole season was he's this blonde, awesome, just God-fearing man. Turns out he is a DOUCHEBAG.
Yes, he is.
So
I bet she wouldn't know what that is. We probably wouldn't need to spell that one out.
it was interesting because Ryan, my husband, he just kind of comes in and sees bits and pieces.
Oh,
of
he
the show.
loves this show. I bet he's like outside.
Absolutely. So he was like, who is this guy with like Sean Lowe? And I'm like, oh, Sean Lowe. And he's like, he was like, he looks sleazy. And I was like, oh, well, I think he's like actually portrayed as the opposite by the franchise. That like he's this like good guy. But I mean, I felt like was the Bachelor's attempt at trying to rebrand themselves as this like wholesome, like, remember, we're wholesome, we're really about love, and like it just didn't work.
That's a really good point. I didn't think about. I think they are trying to move back into the space that this is a show where people find love, and it's not just a show where people come on to act zany and like
Well, and I know you said you give him like 2 weeks. I kind of think that these two they might make their 2025 wedding date. Now, do I think they'll be married for 25 years? Who's to say? You don't know that at any wedding you go to, but I kind of think that they might make it. Now, when we get the article in 6 months, I will eat my words and say, I don't know. I'm not the queen of relationships, but I don't know. I think those two crazy kids might make it work.
I kind of think so too.
Really?
I kind of think so too. And here's why. One, I think that Zach is probably pretty good at commitment.
Yep.
I just think that he'll commit. And I think that the other reason that I think they might do okay is for Katie to move through the Gabby confession. I think is a hard thing.
Mm-hmm.
I agree with that.
That is a hard thing. And she, so if she's actually through it, right? Like if she actually did move through it and she's forgiven him, or like she's okay with that, like she's made peace with it, I think that that's a big, tough thing to move through and work through together. Or that's going to be something that could potentially destroy them, right? Because like there's a breakage of trust there or whatever.
To go full academic, I'm going to gently push back on that. I'm going to gently push back. I disagree that he's good at commitment. I think he is. My sense from watching him this season is that he is good if you are on board with Zach's plan. And I felt like even when he was talking, he's like, we get married 2025, and then we talk about kids. How many kids, I think as long as, and we talked about this, where when things started to get a little bit out of what he wanted, he cut the women, right?
Oh, yeah.
And it's like
Those
those first, well, he didn't cut them. He CUT the WMEN on this SHOW. He cut him, and it was like, this is too much. And I just wonder if like what, for you all have been in long-term relationships, it's like it's all fun those first like 3 to 4 months, and then you get in your first argument and it's like you really start like, this worth it? This really what I want to do? Is this going to be what it's like? And yeah, I'm not sure. I could be wrong though. I'll eat my words if they're together in 2 years.
I suppose if they're on the, like maybe some of that depends, because I agree with you, in terms of it did sort of seem like, well, it needs to be my plan. And he did, that was part of my issue with how he handled the Gabby situation, right? Is that he's like, but this is my plan. Like, and it's like, but it wasn't all your decision to make, right?
Yeah.
So I think that if in some ways, like if Katie and him are moving in the same direction and they have shared plans for things, maybe it will go really well. I mean, I think that for her, she just seemed to really appreciate the stability that he seemed to offer. And I do think that to me, I think he just seems like someone that, oh, well, this is my plan, and so I'm going to stick to it. In fact, sometimes he sticks to it, even when his plan was a bad idea.
Yeah. Kim lost sound for a while.
I lost sound, so I missed all of the hilarious. Like I saw Bill's mouth moving and like you reacting, and I was just like, whatever.
Now you know how all of America felt for that segment on Monday.
I know. Maybe because I did hear it, I had to lose sound for part of our recording
Balanced
to
out
even
the
out
simulation.
the
Balanced out the simulation. All right, lessons learned
from this whole season.
Yeah, or just in life.
together.
I think my lesson is that I think that they should get rid of The Bachelor. I think it should just be The Bachelorette, and that is my lesson. And also, I think that they're just teasing us at this point with Senior Bachelor because they keep advertising that they're casting for it, and there's no show.
And
what are you doing?
And living with a gerontologist, it's like Elaine really wants this to happen.
I do too.
Time she's like, hey, this isn't going to happen. I don't think it's going to happen. So,
come on.
D3. Lessons learned.
Yeah, we got to learn how to talk about sex.
Dang it. Beat me to it.
Really?
Yeah. That was going to be mine. Communication's important. And that was going to be my PSA. One of the biggest predictors in reducing sexual assault is communication around consent. And I feel like if ever there was a time where The Bachelor could have put one on for consent, they could have like flashed up something, some type of training, some type of, because really that was a conversation around consent, right? And he was saying, I'm not consenting. So
yep,
piggybacked. All right. So shout out to the city, Star City, Arkansas. It was incorporated in 1876. It's got a population of 2,274. So one of the 2,274 people in Star City, Arkansas was listening to our podcast.
Awesome.
Yeah, on their page, there's not a lot going on, except There was a movie, and I'm going to ask Kim this because Kim is our go-to for all things pop culture. There was a movie in 1992 starring Bill Paxton and Billy Bob Thornton, written by Billy Bob Thornton. Do you know the name of
Sling
it?
Blade.
No, that's a good.
Oh. What, 1992?
Yeah.
I think they were like friends in college too.
One False Move.
I don't know that one.
Yeah. That's the only thing on their page that they have. Everything else is just like they have an education system, but there's one fan in Star City, Arkansas. Thank you.
Thank you, fan.
I'm already
Thank you, fan.
What is it
All right.
called? The last
One-
tango?
No, One False Move.
One false move.
I say it like I knew the answer. One False Move. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah. A buddy cop movie.
a small town police chief awaits the arrival of a gang of killers.
Get on it.
You can watch it on Crackle,
Oh.
or you can buy it
DVD.
on Prime
That's how
Video.
you know it's good. They couldn't even SCREW around with the with the movie theater.
A lot of the cast, I think, may be local because none of them have pictures.
Nice. A lot of Jethros.
Let's see if there's a fun name. Curtis Rocky, who plays Billy the Face.
Nice.
This is a really exciting thing for people to listen to me go through this. There's someone whose nickname is Jetta.
Yeah.
She plays Bonnie.
All right.
I kind of think I want to find this movie.
Well, we'll do a between seasons where you can review One False Move. All right.
You know, I wouldn't hate that. I think me reviewing bad movies from the early 90s could possibly be another career for me. So,
Well,
We have a long break.
you have a long break. So
We're gonna miss doing this.
Billy Bob
thank you
Thornton,
everybody for listening.
one of the people got married after making that movie.
What?
So a female member of the cast and Billy Bob Thornton got married after they made the movie, but
He's
then they
married.
divorced.
Yeah. How many people's Billy Bob Thornton married? That guy's he's the modern day Shirley MacLaine.
He has been married 6 times.
Yeah. There you go. She was like
He
7.
has 1, 2, 3, 4 children, plus the 2 he adopted with Angelina Jolie.
See, this is why Kim's so good at trivia because
Yeah.
she just won't let a question go unanswered. She's got answers at her fingertips.
Yep.
I know it's problematic. I love Google.
All right. Should
This
we
is
sign
great.
off for this season?
Sign off.
But we're coming back for charity,
Coming
right?
back. Any words of wisdom from anyone before we sign off?
We're coming into more sun, so remember to wear sunscreen.
Ada, do you want to say bye for us?
You
You got to
say
say it though. She
Bye.
waved. Bye. Can you say it one more time? Say bye, everybody.
Bye.
Aw, that's okay.
You have been listening to Bachelorette
with your hosts, Danielle Dick McGee.
Kim Hanna.
And Bill Hennig.
All thoughts and opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the person who spoke them.
If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe to the show, leaving a 5-star rating and review wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Also, please share with your family, friends, colleagues, and other ardent Bachelor fans.
If you have comments or questions you would like us to address on the show, you can email us at bachelorette@gmail.com.
Or on the Twitter with the handle @Bachelorette.
Thanks for listening.